It's time for another episode of me reading Malcolm, the Boy Who Can Talk to Dogs by Karen Bayley. Chapter 10. After we walked Freddie home, Uncle George said, "Come on, let's go and get some fish and chips." He was in a really good mood. Scratch that. A really, really, really good mood. As I've told you before, Uncle George doesn't like parting with his money. After a match, he would sometimes treat us to a bag of chips to share, obviously, which I got most of because it took Uncle George ages to chew with his false teeth. But a whole fish and chips, all to myself. Thank you, Rex. He even bought a Savoy sausage for Curtis. He was so surprised he didn't know what to do with it.
What do I do with this? Is it a toy?
It's a sausage. Curtis had swallowed it whole before I could finish the sentence. It was really long and Curtis had a bit hanging out of his mouth. A proper sausage dog. So, Curtis, what have you found out? Maybe it'd be a good idea to finish the sausage first. He let out with a massive burp.
Well, I spoke to a dog who knows a dog's brother, who works for the gang that stole the medals. And this is the important bit. They're planning another robbery.
When?
Tomorrow night. Another man has a medal, just like your Uncle George's.
Where? We have to stop them.
I don't know, but the medals are really special.
They must be. We have to do something. Freddie will know what to do. I scoffed down my fish and chips, hardly tasting them, which was such a waste. Could be months before Uncle George bought them again, and let out a burp much louder and longer than Curtis's.
Impressive.
Uncle George, I'm going to have to go. I've just remembered I haven't finished my homework. Uncle George looked suspicious. He knew I was more likely to fly to the moon and back than finish homework, but he didn't say anything. He was still in shock over the football. I hurried back around to Freddie's. Her mum opened the door. She was a slightly bigger version of Freddie, with red dreadlocks piled up on her head that made her look at least a foot taller. She looked surprised. "What are you doing here, Malcolm?" Hello, Mrs. Salmons. Can I see Freddie, please?" "You've only just seen her." "Go on through. She's in the garden doing her exercises." Freddie's mum made her do exercises every day. She never said why, and Freddie never asked. She loved doing them. Not normal stuff, though. When I got outside, she was doing push-ups. That's normal, you might think, but on her fingertips with her legs in the air. "Hello," she said, looking up through her arms. "What do you want?" I waited until Freddie's mum had gone back inside, then told her everything Curtis had told me. "We need to stop them." "Duh, yeah." She jumped up. "Come on, then." "Freddie, we can't just rush out. We need some sort of plan. We need to find out why they want the medals." Freddie pulled at one of her braids, a sure sign she was thinking. Then, ping, she had an idea. I can always tell when she has a good idea. Her eyes widen and light up. She looks like a human light bulb. "The museum." "What?" "The history museum in town. It has a selection about medals and all that stuff. They might be able to tell us why the medals are so special." Brilliant. "Well, come on, closes at 5. She grabbed her coat and shouted at her mum. "Me and Malcolm are going to the museum." "No, Freddie, it's Malcolm and I." "No, me and Malcolm. You're not coming." Now wasn't the time for a grammar lesson. She grabbed her coat and we legged it out the door before our mum started teaching us about nouns and verbs. We got to the museum just as the curator was locking up. "Sorry, miss, we're just shutting. You'll have to come back on Monday." Monday would be too late. The robbery was taking place tomorrow. "Oh, no." Freddie burst into tears, another of her many talents. She can cry on demand. Proper tears pouring down her face. "I need to find out something about a medal for my granddad. I promised him it's his birthday tomorrow." The curator looked embarrassed. He obviously wasn't used to sobbing children, especially one that was making quite so much noise. Freddie was really going for it now. A bit of snot started to drip from her nose. How did she do that? I watched, fascinated, waiting to see if the snot would drip onto the floor. The curator was watching too, horrified. He reached for his hanky and passed it to Freddie. "Well, let's see what I can do. I happen to have a special interest in medals. In fact, I like to think I'm a bit of an expert." He puffed his chest out like a pigeon. So far, in fact, I thought he was going to start cooing. Freddie stopped crying and smiled weakly. I could see why she always got the lead in school plays. "Really? Do you think you could help us?" "Tell you what, you wait here and I'll go fetch my books." With that, he went back into the museum. Wow, Freddie, that was amazing. How do you make yourself cry like that? "I just think of my hamster that Mum accidentally put in the washing machine." I gasped. "Oh, I'm sorry. I had no idea your mum killed your hamster." Oh, it didn't die. In fact, it loved the washing machine, especially the spin cycle. It became a really good swimmer. Every time it escaped, we found it in the bath, swimming around in circles. I didn't understand. Why does that make you cry? That's not sad. Oh, these, she said, wiping away her tears, are tears of laughter. It was hilarious. Well, what about that bit of snot? Ah, that. She reached into her pocket. Watered down Play-Doh. I always come prepared. Ha! Gross and funny. I had to stop laughing and look serious as the curator was coming back, carrying a large book under his arm. Come on, let's go and have a cup of tea in that cafe, and you can explain what this is all about. When we'd sat down with a big slice of chocolate cake that even I struggled with on top of my full stomach of undigested fish and chips, Freddie said, Malcolm, get that photo out of my granddad's medal. I reached into my pocket and pulled it out, scared to let it out of my sight. I carried it everywhere. The curator took it off me, smiling. He looked closer. The smile froze on his face. Where did you get this? He looked really serious. I knew that if this kindly gentleman was going to help us, I'd have to tell him the truth. It was my granddad's, not Freddie's. I told him everything, the robbery, all about my granddad and how upset Uncle George was, leaving out the bits about me talking to dogs. I didn't want him to think I was mad. The curator paused. Well, I've only ever seen one other medal like this. I'm not sure what it's for or what those strange letters mean. However, I do know it is very special and I believe quite valuable. They are only given to very important people. I knew Grandad was important. Mum had already told me that. Did your Grandad ever work for the royal family or the government? Not that I know of, but to be honest, I don't know much about Grandad. He died when I was quite young. Well, you need to find out, young man. These medals are only given to people close to the royal family and have done something special for the country. Those letters are some kind of secret code. He scratched his head thoughtfully. You may as well know. I had an elderly man come to the museum a couple of years ago. He had a medal identical to this. He wanted me to have it and hide it in the museum for safekeeping. I told him that I couldn't guarantee it would be safe. He got quite agitated, said he was worried if it fell into the wrong hands it could threaten the whole nation's security. Do you know who the man was? Freddie asked. No, I'm afraid not. However, he did leave this. He opened the large book and took out an envelope. He said if I changed my mind, to open this envelope. Well then, let's open it, she urged. Inside the envelope was a piece of paper, covered in a series of coloured dots. It looked like a really bad painting I'd done in reception that Mum insisted she put on the fridge, showing all her friends how rubbish I was at art. It would stay there until I gave her another rubbish drawing to replace it with. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. We were no closer to finding the medal or the gang. All this effort for nothing. Can we have this? I found myself asking. I had no idea why. I just knew I had to have it. Well, normally I would say no, but it means nothing to me, and seeing as you have that photo, I will make an exception. He folded the piece of paper, put it back in the envelope, and handed it to me with the photo. What now? Chapter 11. Back at mine, we sat down and examined what Chapter 11. Back at mine, we sat down and examined what we had more closely. A photo and a weird piece of paper. Hardly the makings of a detective novel. We decided to write a list of all the things we knew and another of what we needed to find out. We got 2 pieces of paper. On the first we wrote, what we know, brackets, not much. 1, there is going to be another burglary. 2, it is going to happen tomorrow. 3, they want the medal. On the second piece we wrote, what we need to find out, brackets, loads, close brackets. 1, the location of the burglary. 2, when it will happen, what time. 3, who is the man they are going to steal from. 4, why do they want the medals. 5, who are they. 6, what does the weird piece of paper mean? We stared at the paper, then started to giggle. This really doesn't help, does it? No, just a complete waste of paper, Freddie snorted. Yep, and ink, and time. If only my dad was here. I didn't realise I'd said that aloud. Freddie leant across and took my hand. It's just that he'd know what to do. I know he would. We were interrupted by Mum shouting upstairs. Malcolm, does Freddie want to stay for her tea? Yes, please, Mrs. Murray, Freddie answered before I'd even asked her. Freddie would stay for tea and probably have her own tea when she got home. In fact, she could help me eat mine after the chips and chocolate cake. She ate more than anyone I'd ever seen and was still as skinny as a rake. Mum says she eats like a horse. the amount, not putting her head in a trough, which if you think about it is a really stupid saying. Horses eat hay and whinny a lot. Freddie does not. There are a lot of stupid sayings like this. Dad and I were always thinking of them and arguing why they are ridiculous. Here are some of the most ridiculous ones. You can't have your cake and eat it. Me. What does that mean, Dad? Well, it means you can't have everything you want. Me. Why not say that then? What's the point of having a piece of cake and not eating it? What are you meant to do with it? Wear it as a hat? Shove it up your nose? Screw it up in your hands and throw it like a snowball? I came up with loads of these. Great fun. When Freddie and I are bored, we played stupid things you can do with the cake game. Try it. Another one, raining cats and dogs. Me. What does that mean, Dad? It's raining really heavily. Me. So cats and dogs are not falling out of the sky, Dad? Of course not. Mind you, after my recent experience, I wouldn't be surprised to see a dog with a parachute. Dad and I could go on like this for hours. Just as we were finishing our tea, there was a frantic knock at the door. It was Uncle George, looking really annoyed, and Curtis panting wildly. What on earth is the matter, Mum said. You look like someone's just set light to your trousers. Mum is a fan of weird sayings too. It's this stupid dog, he's lost the plot. Curtis looked at me.
Stupid, stupid? Says a man who can't even find the end of his nose.
I was impressed. Dogs like stupid sayings too. Uncle George continued. He was barking at the door like crazy. I thought maybe the gang had come back. I opened the door a tiny crack to see if there's anyone there. He shoved me out the way and haired round here as if a rocket was up his jacksie.
I needed to speak to you.
What's happened? Have you found out about the gang?
Yeah, their dogs have been talking about the burglary in P-mails.
I did wonder how a dog could pick up all this information in one sniff, but that's a question for another day. So what have they been saying?
Next one will take place tomorrow, just as it goes dark, about 6 p.m.
Curtis, how do you tell the time? He stared at me, shook his head in disbelief, and then said,
with a watch.
Something else I would have to investigate. However, we had much more pressing matters. Trouble is, we still don't know where. I explained to Curtis about our visit to the museum, the strange man with the medal, and the even stranger message he'd left.
Let me look at it.
What makes you think you can read it, if we can't?
Well, sometimes we see things differently to humans.
I had no idea what he meant, but gave it to him anyway. Freddie and I had run out of ideas. Curtis peered at the paper.
What's not to read? It says Barkington Lodge, Barkswell, BB1, 8WF.
You can read that?
Of course, pretty simple, really.
It's just a series of dots.
Yeah, and the dots say Barkington Lodge, Barkswell.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. But once Curtis decided that he was going to tell you something, there was no stopping him. Despite my protestations, he explained the different ways that dogs can see colours, which means that a series of dots to us can be seen very differently by dogs.
There are loads of things we can do you can't. Bet you can't do this.
With that, he sat down and started to scoot along the carpet. Dear reader, if you do not know what this means, it is a rather unpleasant manoeuvre when a dog drags his backside along the floor. Why would I want to do that? Will you stop that? It looks like you're wiping your bum on the carpet.
Don't be ridiculous. I'm giving it a scratch. My paws won't reach.
Okay, but why did the man at the museum leave a note that only dogs can read?
We can ask him that when we see him. Come on, we've got an address and a time. Let's go.
We can't just rush round there. We need to make a plan.
What is it with you humans and plans? Just do it.
As I told Freddie what Curtis had told me, we could still hear Mum calming Uncle George down in the kitchen. We can't fight this gang on our own. We need to go to the police, she said. I didn't say anything about fighting. And do you really think the police will believe us? They'll send us to the funny farm. Funny farm, another stupid saying. Loads of animals parading around in clown costumes and cars with doors falling off. Well, we should go round there and warn this man at least. Maybe he can run away and hide the medal before we get there. Brilliant. Why hadn't I thought of that? We Googled the address on our phones and calculated that it would take about an hour to get there. Right, I'll meet you at the swings in the park tomorrow at 4 p.m, Freddie said. And bring a disguise. What for? We're going to a fancy dress party on the way? Freddie looked annoyed. Sorry. A disguise. I'll see what I can do. We'll be back.